So I was chosen at the age of 7 and turned professional at the age of 12 was my
Right,
first tour.
right,
So already at a very early age, beyond, watching my parents, really saw how business worked, whether it
right,
was with the stage managers, the lighting, and,
right.
traveling and that type of thing. So I always had one eye out
Hmm.
on everyone else around me. Most dancers, it's about us, our body, and being on stage.
So, welcome to the Meaningful Jobs podcast, season 2. I'm your host, Adrian, and today we're extremely honored to welcome Leslie Short, who is the owner of the Cavu Group, and is a distinguished entrepreneur for a long time already. So, how are you doing, Leslie?
I'm doing wonderful. Thank you for the invite.
No problem. And I'm very excited for this interview because I love interviewing entrepreneurs. As one myself, I understand all the difficulties, the challenges an entrepreneur faces. But before diving into the two businesses that you currently own, can I first ask about how you started your career before you entered into business?
Absolutely. My first career was a classical ballet dancer.
Oh, wow.
So I
Okay, that's completely different from what I was imagining.
so I was chosen at the age of 7 and turned professional at the age of 12 was my
Right,
first tour.
right,
So I, already at a very early age, beyond, watching my parents, really saw how business worked, whether it
right,
was with the stage managers, the lighting, and,
right.
traveling and that type of thing. So I always had one eye out
Hmm.
on everyone else around me. Most dancers, it's about us, our body, and being on stage.
Right.
And so I never knew what I would do with the other knowledge of how to run the lights, but
Hmm.
I knew that that was much more interesting than speaking about falling out of a pirouette, a dance turn or something.
Hmm.
And I was blessed enough to have a very long career. I was in Europe for 10 and a half years. I was in
Right.
Asia, 3.5, all dancing. And when I got to Asia is where I retired in
Right.
Japan, or semi technically retired. And I opened up a theater. And
Wow.
that was my first business venture. Yeah, exactly. No,
So
I go
you've
big or
never
go home.
you've never actually been employed. Like, well, you've been technically, I guess, but it seems like you ventured straight into entrepreneurship from a young age.
Absolutely. And I have friends to this day that was at the dinner in Japan,
Right.
and that I made the deal to open up the theater, that I shook
Right.
the hand of my business partner, that went from being my boss to my business partner.
Oh,
And
wow.
my friends will say, you went from across the table to
Hmm.
one of them
Hmm.
in less than 5 minutes.
Wow. How did that happen? You've got to tell us about this.
I knew what I wanted in my head. I knew I kept passing this one venue that
Mm.
was empty. And I kept saying, that's going to be my theater. And I
Hmm.
had the songs in my head, and I had the choreography in my head, and I had the wardrobe in my head. I
Right.
had the color of the theater. I knew how much I would charge for tickets. And so when he asked me, when I said to his wife, did you tell him what I want? And he's like, oh no, what does she want now? What's she fighting for the dancers now? She always wants
Right.
something for them. And I said, no, I
Mm.
want a show. And he started asking me questions, and I had the answers to them
Mm.
because it all was in my head.
Can I
And he
ask
shook my hand and
Can
said,
I ask if
yes,
he is a local Japanese guy or what
he
nationality?
is.
Oh, wow.
Jeff.
Because it's
So,
no, it's notoriously difficult to, get into Japanese society, and you did.
yes. And that's what everyone kept saying. Like, I don't think you know what you did. I have a friend now that's like, you have no idea what you did.
Hmm.
You, one woman, Gaijin, a woman with a mouth, Gaijin, black, American. Like, the list is this long, or
Yeah.
why it shouldn't have happened.
Hmm.
But he was a businessman,
Mm.
and everything that he was asking, I had already thought through.
Mm.
And so when the deal happened and when it opened, I had death threats. I was ruining the
Really?
culture. Like,
Wow.
Japan, I was, why am I here? Why am I doing this?
Mm-hmm.
But when it opened, it became one of the top 4 businesses of Japan for 1992, 94, 92 now.
Wow.
And, I understood and I opened it for the culture that was there, not for the culture I thought it should be. And I think that's why it became successful, because I listened to the consumer and I asked them what they wanted, and they
Mm.
grew with me in the show.
I see. So, well, that's quite an adventure by itself. So how long were you like in this business for?
I did that for about 2.5 years. And then I decided to come back to America because I had not been living in America for 13.5 years.
Wow.
And that maybe I think I want to produce for television. Maybe there's something here for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I came back. I sold a theater and I came back and I interned.
Oh, wow. So
And
you started from the bottom.
so because I said I have this amazing career,
Mm-hmm.
but no one knows who I am here.
Mm.
People don't know my work ethic.
Mm-hmm.
So I will get in the door any way I can. And I
Mm.
walked in the door by interning and then being an audience person. And
Yeah.
when the opportunity came to be a production assistant, I took it. I was a production assistant for less than 2 weeks before I became a producer,
Right. Right.
because they saw the way that I work and they were giving us tasks and the opportunity was there.
Yeah.
So, it's about being prepared.
I see a common theme. So like you secured a business partnership in 5 minutes and you got promoted in 2 weeks. So, things that normally happen for a long time with other people happen really quickly with you. Any particular, well, secret or success behind this, you think?
You know what? I do a lot of studying on my own, but I'm
Mm.
studying, I always tell everyone, read the room. And so I was very good about reading the room. What was missing? What could I offer that could
Mm.
be a little bit different? And if anyone's ever produced for television, it's just like, your PA, everyone's the same. Every associate producers, everyone's, but I also had so much different culture to bring with me by not having lived in this country,
Right.
in America for 13.5 years. So I could bring that.
Mm.
I had other connections,
Mm-hmm.
in the entertainment field where we were doing a show. I could call on those friends that
Right.
at that point were successful in the industry, where
Mm.
I didn't have to go through agents. I could pick up the phone call and go, "Hey, what are you doing? Can you come do something?" And
Mm-hmm.
so I'm always pushing myself
Mm-hmm.
to learn something new, to see what's available. Like
Right.
now I'm in a psychology class, you
Oh,
know.
okay. Well, you're all over the place in a good way.
But yeah, but the psychology, as I'm going through it and I'm reading about fraud and I'm going, Sigmund Freud, you were doing diversity, equity, and inclusion back then. Because it's the same things I'm saying to people, how we react to each other
Mm-hmm.
is really psychology, how we think, how we move.
Mm-hmm.
And so to be able to add some of that history
Mm-hmm.
into having conversations is great.
So can you tell us a little bit about, how you found meaning in, first of all, what you did as a ballet teacher and, in opening uh, a theater in Japan?
Right. So my theater I was choreographing and directing. I love what I do. Number
Mm.
one, I love life. Let's put it that
Right,
way.
right.
There's
That's important.
there is always something to learn. There's
Hmm.
always something to do. There's always sometimes you just need to sit down and do nothing and learn nothing and just
Right,
be with yourself.
right.
And it's understanding that there's no one that can tell me that I belong somewhere. I
Hmm.
get to decide where I belong.
Hmm.
And so with that, I never was scared to walk into a place and say, I have something to offer here, as opposed to someone telling me, this is all we want from you.
Hmm.
And if it wasn't right, then I had my own power of strength to say, well, I guess I'm going.
Can you tell me
And
a bit more about, when you said, nobody can tell me where I belong? Can you maybe like explain a little bit about what you mean by this?
yes, well, in business, especially here in the States, that word is, they're taking away diversity and they're saying inclusion and belonging, equity and belonging. You
Mm,
have to belong here. And I'm like, there's no job in the world that can tell me where I belong. Belonging
mm,
is your own feeling, it's your own spirit, it's your own gut that allows you to say, this is a place where I can show who I am and share what I do,
mm-hmm,
as opposed to someone telling me you fit in here.
mm-hmm,
And when they tell you that, you fit in there for as long as they want you to fit in.
mm.
But
My
have your,
my question
yes.
would be, because I'm very intrigued by this, because and I've not really thought of this before, but when you said, not having to force yourself to fit into any group, doesn't that make you feel lonely or anxious at some point? Like, because as humans, it's normal for us, for human nature, to have a sense of belonging to somewhere. So how do you cope with that?
I think everyone has a tribe somewhere, but
Right.
I don't have to. One, I don't have to have it at work.
Mm-hmm.
I have it within me first.
Mm-hmm.
I have my faith bases me, is that's my foundation. So I'm never alone. There's loneliness. There can be times where there's loneliness where I'm working on something and I don't want to be around anyone until it's baked in my head, and then I
Right.
step out. But there's people that you gravitate to and you enjoy,
Mm.
but that doesn't make my life, that enhances my life, if
Mm.
that makes sense to you.
Right. Right.
And when you start getting older, you really start realizing the people you spend time with, how
Mm.
you move, where you go, you want meaning to it, you want purpose to it.
Mm-hmm.
And so hanging out and woo woo, we have a bunch of people around us. I always use the analogy, and it happened the other day. If you fall and you bust your head wide open, who the people that stay, who's the person that calls, who's the people that runs, and who actually holds your head?
Mm. Well, I can
And
imagine, in business, there can be quite a lot of people who don't have your best interests at heart. So,
right.
when I started my business, I did feel lonely at times because there are things that you just go through without other people knowing. So it seems like you found, a formula to cope with this, by, automatically filtering out people who don't really support you and those who will. Any again, like any personal experience that you can share that helps you reach the stage you are today?
Yeah, I think it really is, who do you have around you? And they may not be in your field. They
Hmm.
may just be a great sounding board. It may be that person that just, you're going to call them and all you're going to do is laugh.
Mm-hmm.
Then you have that person that you're going to call and be like, I can't do it. I can't do it. And they'll be like, get it together.
We
You
all need
can.
this friend.
You need those friends.
Mm-hmm.
Those are true friends.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you're working on something, you have to be willing to say, it's not working, or I believe. When
Mm-hmm.
I first started the Cavu group, and some people were like, and this was before the buzz of diversity, equity, and inclusion. Someone said to me, I'll never forget, in a cocktail party, who's going to need that?
Mm-hmm.
And I still laugh every time I see him now. I'm like, how are you doing? You need this now, right? But I believed in the way that I wanted to structure my company and how I wanted to work, and the conversations that I wanted to have with people were
Mm-hmm.
going to be different. That was already in the market.
Mm-hmm.
But I had to do my research. I had to do my homework. And so yes, there was times I had to be quiet.
Yeah.
And then you have to have that trusted circle that you run ideas by. And
Well, I think this leads me to, my next set of questions, which is about your current business, the Cavu Group. So you mentioned, diversity and inclusion not being a buzzword in the past, but obviously now everybody's talking about it. How do you define these words yourself?
Absolutely. So diversity is race, gender, LGBTQ plus, disabilities, sight seen and those unseen, and veterans is still under that umbrella.
Mm-hmm.
Equity equals access. That
Mm-hmm.
means I need to go in and have the tools to understand how the system works, how I can upscale, how I can learn something new, how I get promoted, who do I speak to? It's access
Mm-hmm.
and access to opportunity. Inclusion is a feeling. Inclusion is the way that you build your company culture. Is not being invited in the room, because you can invite anyone in the room. Once
Mm-hmm.
I'm in the room, do I have the instructions, what I need to do to help maneuver that room? And then you can let me loose and I can say hello to people. But it's like going to a party and someone says, oh, I want you to meet this person and meet that person and meet that person. And you go, that's inclusion. Now you have to continue that inclusion, right? Or you can stand in a corner after you've met everyone
Mm-hmm.
and you can see how else you connect. That's inclusion. It's a feeling, it's an
So,
action.
so you said, inclusion is a feeling, which can be a bit vague to some people. So, where would you draw the line in terms of what is an acceptable feeling or what isn't?
I can't say that because that's the whole point. Inclusion is different for each of us.
Mm-hmm.
Someone may go in and just be happy to be in the room.
Mm-hmm.
I go in the room and I'm like, where's the instructions? How do I maneuver? Or what's going on here? I need details. And then
Mm-hmm.
I can find my way through the room.
Mm-hmm.
Someone else may need to be in the room with directions and an introduction.
Mm-hmm.
So each person comes in with who they are, of what they need. So it's up to a job or business to create the culture of openness, understanding, welcomeness, knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
That's where culture comes in. You can't have any of this without having a strong foundation of a culture.
I'd be very interested in learning about how you consult businesses, because obviously, diversity and inclusion are important aspects. But based on my personal experience, a business exists because it does, to a certain extent, have to make money. Otherwise, nobody would have a job. So how do you find a balance between, allowing people to express themselves and a business still not losing its own direction?
Well, let's be honest, it comes back to culture. So, what's your foundation? Diversity, equity, inclusion is not an add on. That's where the confusion is.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It should be found on the foundation of how you run your business. It's been proven that diversity of thought and diversity of people, diversity of culture is a plus for business for you to make money. So therefore, how do you educate leadership to understand that their directors, their managers, anyone, that this is important part of what the foundation and the thread of a company is? And how do you allow people to have a voice within those meetings when it's right?
I'm very interested in the part where you said that diversity and inclusion helps businesses make more money, in certain research studies. Can you tell us a little bit more about this?
Well, think about it. If everyone comes in and everyone's dressed the same, looks the same, thinks the same, you're going to market the same.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that may be all you want, that market. But if you come in and you and I are in a room, other people are in a room, and you're like, that would be amazing in my culture. If you tweak it like this or have this person have this conversation, the
Mm-hmm.
doors were open. I say, you know what? Let's cross promote that and then add this on. They've opened 2 markets and they've sat at the table.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's where it comes in to understand that each person, now, of course, a company of 500, 800, there's still a way to hear voices.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone may not be at the decision-making table, but there are ways to be able to understand these different cultures that are within your company on how you can make it exterior company
Mm-hmm.
to make money. It is a business at the end of
Yeah, yeah, it's true that, just having one voice is not gonna make the cut for a lot of businesses. But also I would ask is, again, businesses do have to make decisions at the end, and not every decision is going to make everybody happy. Discussions are very important, obviously, but based on your experience, is there a certain point where, businesses have to say, okay, let's, put a stop to a discussion. We do need to come up with a decision. Like, where's that kind of stage, you think?
Well, that's leadership, right? That's having a strong leadership that
Mm-hmm.
they know every decision. And I tell employees, every decision you're not going to know about. Stop asking for transparency. You're never going to get that. It's not your business. Ask for visibility.
Mm-hmm.
Visibility is you have an understanding the direction you're going in and
Yeah.
how you're getting there. And so that means leadership must communicate that. Everything's not going to be a vote. And if you've built a culture of communication
Mm-hmm.
and equity where people feel that they're invested in whatever their job is, whether it's the mailroom or the boardroom,
Mm-hmm.
then you have the trust as leadership to make those moves. That's where the disconnect is.
Well, thanks for, your thoughts on diversity and inclusion. Besides these two issues, is there anything else that you feel is really important in how you find meaning in the work you do and the work you do with your clients?
I'm tough on my clients as I'm tough on myself
Right,
because
right.
I want them to succeed. And
Mm-hmm.
so when I went to an office yesterday that I worked with for 6 months in the midst of a restructure and craziness, and I walked in and the staff came up to me and said, "What you gave us, we're still using today. Did
Mm-hmm.
you go see the wall? We put our values up on the wall, but we're living the values that
Mm-hmm.
you helped after 20 years for us to finally organize and get done." And they looked and they said, "I hope you're happy. I hope we're someone you speak about."
Mm-hmm.
And I said, "But you all worked really hard in a very short period of time, but you wanted to turn it around."
Mm-hmm.
And that's important to me. That is joy. But I find joy by just, I'm those crazy person that finds something new I can speak about, a new way I can add into a workshop,
Mm-hmm.
a new conversation of the same conversation, but a new way to have it.
Mm-hmm.
And so that gives me joy. I really do love what I do.
Right.
And so I'm always looking for new ways to keep the conversation going.
Mm. Well, do you have a secret to find out where your passion lies? Because it's no secret that a lot of people don't like their 9 to 5 jobs. And it's
Right.
easy to tell them to have passion in what they do. But if it were that easy, then there won't be so many people being so unhappy. So, how would you advise people in how to find passion in what they do?
Well, number one, it's not the job's responsibility to give you passion. That's
Mm-hmm.
number one. You have to find passion within yourself. And
Mm-hmm.
let's be honest, maybe you don't like what you do. That's okay. Is there something else you're passionate about? Do you go home and bake? Do
Mm-hmm.
you go home when you play sports or you sing or you babysit, whatever that is? It's about, shouldn't be all about your work. It should be about your life.
Right.
And if your life, you have pieces of it's passionate, there's going to be things that I have to do in my work that I don't like. There's conversations I'm like, oh, here we go. Or I
Mm-hmm.
have to let someone go. I'm not passionate about helping someone be let go of a job, but I'm passionate about making sure they have the right people and how it's being done.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but when I leave that, I'm still going to go be passionate about having a great cheese board and maybe a glass of
Right.
wine. That's something. So it's not one thing that you should have passion about. You should have, you should be passionate about
Mm-hmm.
many things in your life.
Mm.
And so I really hope people will find that. If it's reading a book,
Mm-hmm.
I don't care what it is. What is it that brings you joy?
Mm. Well, so lastly, shortly before we end the interview, do you have any advice for people who are thinking of changing jobs or getting into entrepreneurship? Because it's human nature not to like changes a lot of the times. How would you advise these people?
For some, if you can volunteer somewhere and see if you're going to even like the job, what it really looks like, I would say do that.
Right.
Really do your research. If you're going to be an entrepreneur, this is not for the faint of heart. You
Mm.
need to be able to afford insurance. You
Right.
need to be able to decide what type of formation you're going to build your business. Is it an LLC? Is it a corporation? Making sure that you have a good tax person, a good lawyer. We're not
Mm.
even talking about your passion yet. We're just talking about the business at hand. If you
Right.
don't like business
Mhm.
and you just like twiddling over there, you may need to find a partner that's really good with that,
Mm.
because they have to blend. You
Right.
just can't be best kept secret because you have a passion about it.
Mm.
So go volunteer in the things that you want to do, try them out, take a course, see if you like it before you jump in.
Mhm. Mhm.
That's
Well,
my biggest thing.
it's been a great interview and great honor to have you here, Leslie. I wish your business all the success and hope to see you again soon.
Likewise, and the same for yours. Thank you.
Thank you.